Hello everyone and welcome to my talk about rule extraction for discovering scenarios. Scenario discovery task is defined on the datasets produced by simulation models. This is why we will be using simulation model to motivate our research. However, at the end of the presentation, I will show that our contribution rates is not limited to this kind of data and can be also treated as a semi-supervised subgroup discovery method. Simulation models are usually described by means of differential equations, for example, like this one. The parameters of these differential equations are the inputs of a simulation model. And the simulation model is used to provide an output value for specific values of its inputs. For example, if one simulates electrical grid, the inputs could be inertia, damping coefficients, coupling strength of electrical lines, and so on. The output could be the label indicating the stability of an electrical grid, i.e. whether the grid is stable or unstable for specific values of its parameters. For financial organization, inputs could be exchange rates, default rates, interest rates, and so on. Output could be the expected revenue of the organization. One can think about many more different simulations, for example, climate change simulations. When a simulation model is used in conventional way, one starts with defining scenarios. These scenarios are defined by means of a specific values of the inputs of a simulation model. Normally, one comes up with three scenarios, named baseline, pessimistic, and optimistic scenarios. The model is then used to obtain outputs for these scenarios and to use these outputs in decision-making process. That is, in conventional way, one starts with defining scenarios, then obtain outputs of a simulation, and then base the decision based on that output. However, there are a few problems with this approach. Namely, one cannot guarantee that the probability of a baseline scenario is high enough to base a decision on it. Few additional simulations of optimistic and pessimistic scenarios provide a little insight in how sensitive our decision to slight changes in scenario description. This is why it was proposed to reverse this process and do so-called scenario discovery. In scenario discovery, one starts with using simulation model to simulate the system for many diverse sets of values of its inputs. Then one defines which output values are of specific interest. For example, whether the system is unstable. And then one finds and reports scenarios, that is, sets of input values leading to a similar output. The goal of scenario discovery is to understand and describe the system's response to different input values. Hence, the requirement of scenarios is that they are human comprehensible. For example, they could have a form of hyperboxes or rules which are easy to write down and easy to express. One can think about two groups of models which produce output in the form of hyperboxes. These are decision trees and subgroup discovery methods. The main difference between these groups is that decision tree targeted partition the whole input space into hyperboxes and targeted high accuracy. At the same time, the goal of subgroup discovery methods is finding a small number of large and pure hyperboxes. And these hyperboxes could help answering the questions like this: for which combination of input values the electrical grid is unstable? Currently, the most commonly used method for scenario discovery is a subgroup discovery method, PRIM. Naturally, the quality of scenarios discovered by PRIM increases with an increasing number of simulation runs. However, simulations are often time-consuming, and this is why uh, our research question was if one can find functional scenarios from fewer examples, from fewer simulation runs. To address this question, we proposed to modify conventional scenario discovery process. Specifically, instead of applying scenario discovery method PRIM directly to the output of a simulation model, we propose to add an intermediate step of training an accurate meta model and then using this meta model to inexpensively uh, create much larger data sets, which are subsequently used by scenario discovery method. To formalize, simulation model implicitly defines a function f of x, which is a probability of output being interesting given input. For deterministic simulation model, this function can take values either 1 or 0. For stochastic simulation model, f of x can take all values between 0 and 1. The target of accurate meta model is to approximate the function f of x defined by a simulation model as close as possible with function f(am) of x. And the meta model could be, for example, boosted trees, random forest, support vector machine, and so on. Let us have a closer look at how conventional scenario discovery method PRIM works. It starts with all examples, then it iteratively cuts off small share of points, and it does so that the expected value of function f of x in the discarded areas is as small as possible. I will now show a small animation demonstrating PRIM at work. In the left upper corner, one will see the actions done by PRIM, and in the bottom, I will put the points in the precision recall curve, in the precision recall space, which correspond to the recall and precision of the points remaining after each PRIM iteration. So one can see that with PRIM progression, recall of remaining points usually decreases and precision increases. The points on precision recall curve form so-called Brillouin trajectory, and the area under this trajectory can be used as a quality measure of scenarios produced by PRIM. We will be using it in our future slides. To understand why REDS works, let us have a look in source of error in conventional process and source of error in RADS. So in conventional process, the error comes from with not enough simulations being done. With RADS, the accurate meta model can label points inexpensively, and this is why the main source of error is imperfect approximation of true function implied by simulation model f of x by the function implied by accurate meta model f(am) of x. In our paper, we have further statistical considerations explaining this difference. However, our main means of proving that RADS works is exhaustive experiments. I would like to talk a bit about evaluation principles we used in our experiments. Although these principles might seem obvious or straightforward for some of you, we have found out that often not all of them or not any of them are used in the subgroup discovery or scenario discovery literature. These principles include using many data sets to show generality of the result, assess the quality on unseen test data, and optimize hyperparameters of baseline of competing methods. In our experiments, we used a variety of different simulation models, 33 simulation models. We evaluated the quality of scenarios using 6 different quality measures. We experimented with different dataset sizes. Additionally, to show generality of our result to some extent, we not only used PRIM subgroup discovery method, but also another subgroup discovery method, best interval. And we make our experimental code publicly available. On this plot, one can see the result obtained on a single simulation model in 50 repetitions. This curve corresponds to the accuracy of scenarios produced by a given method with number of simulation runs. One can see, for example, that the scenarios obtained by our method RADS at 400 points, 400 simulation runs, is comparable to the quality of scenarios found by its close competitor, PRIM with hyperparameter optimization, at 1,600 runs. In this graph, one can see results for all 33 simulation models we used in our study. Each point in the plot corresponds to the quality increase in percent relative to our baseline PRIM with hyperparameter optimization. One can see that two specific variants of RADS, namely RADS with meta-model random forest and RADS with meta-model boosted trees, are always better than our, or at least not worse than our baseline, and they are significantly better than any competitor. This table presents another view of this result. So it is mean quality value across all 33 data simulation models in 50 repetitions. From this table, we can see that the average quality achieved by our method RADS at 400 points is similar to the one achieved by its closest competitors at 800 points, meaning that RADS is able to reduce the number simulation twice. Sometimes simulation model is not available and only the small data produced by it is given. For example, this could happen when some model was researched in a scenario discovery community, and the model was not published. We have shown that REDS is beneficial also in this case. So here one can see the learning curves, the opinion trajectories produced by conventional scenario discovery in blue, and opinion trajectory produced by REDS in red. So the curves obtained by RED are higher, meaning that they have both higher recall and precision. So far, we considered only data coming from simulations. One can run roughly and distinguish another possible source of data is measurements from physical processes. The main distinction between these two data sources is that in the simulations, one can control the distribution of its inputs values. Whereas for measured data, one has a limited possibility to control this distribution. However, in a specific case, in the semi-supervised setting, the points from this distribution are readily available. And in our paper, we have also shown that REDS is better in this setting. To summarize, we have proposed method REDS, and with this method, one can significantly reduce the size of labeled datasets required to find high-quality scenarios or subgroups. Or equivalently, one can significantly increase the quality of scenarios discovered from labeled data of limited size. I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching this video. And please see our paper if you would like to know more details about experiments and see more experimental results. I would also be happy to answer your questions.